This is the SwishWire podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the SwishWire podcast. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Jay, Zach, and Scobie. Guys, say what's up.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up, man?
Glad to be here.
So today we have a hot topic. The All-Star reserves were just announced. So just to quickly run down the rosters, for the West, we have Anthony Davis, who's injured, so he's going to have a replacement soon. Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson. And then for the East, we have Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Vucevic. So I'm just going to open the floor up to you guys. What are your first thoughts on the roster?
All right, so me, as the resident Bulls fan, my first reaction was, let's go, Zach LaVine made the roster. That was the biggest thing. I think Zach LaVine deserves this recognition as much as anybody. He's one of the hardest workers in the NBA. And just seeing that as a Bulls fan, it made me want to cry. Not literally, but, I probably could have cried after seeing that. And then right after that, I was like, where is Domantas Sabonis? Because this guy's averaging 21, 11, and 5 on 52, 35, 71 splits, and he's leading a team to a top 4 seed in the East. He was being mentioned as an MVP candidate at the beginning of the season, and it's not like he dropped off like this cliff after that. So I mean, that seems pretty all-star worthy to me. That was my first reaction. I don't know how you guys feel about that. But
Yeah, I have something about Sabonis. I'm reading here from StatMuse. Domantas Sabonis is the first player in NBA history to average 20, 10, and 5 and not make an all-star team.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I didn't know.
That's wild. He definitely that just speaks to the amount of talent in the league right now, in my opinion, when a guy doing that doesn't make the all-star team. I mean, you're saying yourself, Zach, you think that he was snubbed, right?
Yeah, I think I think you could bring up Devin Booker also as one of the biggest snubs, but for the East, Sabonis is the biggest snub to me, without a doubt.
I mean, I think over the last few years, we've definitely seen this trend of, just the talent increasing. I mean, straight up, if you look at the landscape in the East, especially, I mean, even 3 years ago, you had Goran Dragic in the All-Star game. And I mean, you look at the talent differential now. I mean, the guys that are missing the game this year. I mean, Gordon Hayward, Jeremy Grant, Chris Middleton. Obviously, we just spoken about Sabonis. Trae Young, obviously, is a big one. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see, guys of this talent, who are going to be sidelined for this All-Star game.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier. This is like the first year I can remember where the talent pool is this deep. There's 20 plus guys in each conference that you can make a case for being an all-star this year. And I don't remember that being the case in like past years.
I think that the game is in Atlanta this year, and for that reason alone, I thought that Trae Young would have been on the All-Star team. I don't know. We could go back and look, but I can't think of too many times where there wasn't an All-Star on the team that was hosting the All-Star game. Even in Charlotte though, wasn't Kemba Walker?
Yeah, he was.
So who was it last year then?
Zach
LaVine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was in
LaVine didn't
Chicago.
make it. Yeah, but he should. You could argue he should have made it last year too. But
Definitely.
yeah.
Eh.
But what I'm saying though, it's so rare for a team to not have a player when they're hosting the All-Star game. But I mean, it is what it is. Trae Young, if I want to touch on him just for a minute, he's averaging more assists than last year, shooting better from the field slightly, shooting better from the line and 3, and the Hawks are in a better position this year than they were last year. So I don't get how he can go from all-star starter to not even in the game. He's averaging 27 and 9.5 assists on pretty good splits. I don't get how he can't be there, but
If I can interject, I mean, I think a lot of Trae Young's, a lot of what you can attribute Trae Young's All-Star starter appearance to last year was the fan voting. Because obviously in his initial breakout, he was definitely caught up, in that wave of hype. And honestly, if he didn't make the starters last year because of fan voting, he might have ended up in the same boat as Bradley Beal and ended up missing the game. So it doesn't come as a complete surprise to me. I definitely think he was deserving of a spot this year, especially seeing as Atlanta's been operating with half a roster all season.
yeah.
This is the team that made multiple key additions And they've had key role players, miss a combined, what is it, something like 70 games. That's big. So for him to, put this team in a position where they feel good about themselves and where they feel like, they're going to earn at least a play-in berth, you've got to be feeling good about the Hawks going down, this stretch of the season, and you've got to feel like Trae Young was very much deserving of a spot in the All-Star game this year.
Do you think he should have made it over someone or no?
I think you can. I mean, if he was going to make it, it would have been as a wild card, and I think you can make a case for him over the likes of Vucevic for sure.
For me, I think Trae should have easily made it over Ben. Obviously, they're the first seed in the East, and he's playing amazing defense. But like when you look at Trae Young, obviously, as Kobe said, I mean, like Atlanta, like they've barely had a team this year, and they're still like near the play-in, like they're like 0.5 out of it, I believe. Trae Young, he's averaging 27, 4, and 9 on 44% from the field, 38% from three, and a 61% true shooting rate. And he's just been so efficient, so good, so impactful on that end. And honestly, like, I just don't understand how Ben Simmons made it. Like, I understand record and all that, and he's been, in my opinion, the best perimeter defender in the entire league this year. But, I mean, outside of that, like, I don't think anything that he's done this year, outside of defense, obviously warrants an all-star selection. I mean, he's been a great passer, but, I mean, like, for guys like Trae Young, who's been a better playmaker than him on and off the ball, well, arguably not on ball, but off ball, as a whole, he's been a better playmaker. And then that with, I mean, like, Ben, he's had a really good stretch these past 3 weeks, but I don't think that's enough to make up for guys like Trae Young or Chris Middleton, their consistent play the entire season. I know Trae did have a slump, but Middleton, I don't know how he didn't make it. Like, he's averaging 21, 6, and 6 on near 50, 40, 90 again. And the Bucks, they've been in a slump, but they're still a top 3 seed. So if you're going to use, I don't really use winning as my argument. I'll get into that a little later. But they're still a top 3 seed. So if you want to use winning to your argument, put Middleton right in there.
Let me intervene with Ben Simmons just for a sec. I mean, I'm a Trae fan. I have his jersey on right now, and I think he should have been an all-star, but I wouldn't have him over Ben Simmons personally, because if we look at his February stats, Ben's averaging 21, 9, and 9 with 1.5 steals and shooting 62% from the floor. Like that is nuts. You got to give credit to Ben Simmons. Like, he's had it's been a quiet, good month, but it's been a really good month.
I also think Ben Simmons has hit that point where he's becoming one of those guys where he's an annual all-star at this point. I mean, we're talking 3 years in a row at this point. He's got to that level where the voters, especially the coaches, are going to make allowances for these down stretches because they know how talented he is. We see it with guys as they start ramping up over the years and making these consistent appearances.
That's what I thought was going to happen with Trae Young. I know it's a little early in his career, but I thought that by now Trae Young is just like a household all-star in the league. But
I think the only argument against Trae is team record, but I think they threw that out the window when they gave Bradley Beal a starting spot, and the same can apply to Trae as a guy like Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic is a guy, I know a lot of people probably saw this list and they thought right away that Vucevic was a guy who, like, let's give these other guys a spot over him. But I mean, he's kept the Magic relevant for the better part of a decade now, and he's having the best season of his career. He's putting up like 24 and 11 on great splits, and the Magic are without guys like Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon and Markelle Fultz, and Cole Anthony is out now. And I know that they're not, like, they're outside of the play-in right now, but still, like, team record, you gave Bradley Beal a starting spot. Team record, it's not in the conversation anymore. So
if you're talking about the Magic, of course, I mean, you've always got to give credit to Steve Clifford, because no matter how many guys are down on that roster, that's a group that has remained competitive over the years, regardless of who they're putting out on the floor every night.
Definitely.
One thing, like, at first when I saw Vucevic in there, I knew he was having an amazing season in all-star caliber, but I was confused over him, being over guys like Middleton, and I still think Middleton should have been over Vucevic for sure. But I mean, looking more into it, just thinking about it more, like, he's also had like half a roster this year, and they're on a 3-game winning streak, 4-1 in their last 5, I believe. And Vucevic, the numbers speak for itself. So I think with more thought, I think Vucevic, he should be in there over a guy like Sabonis. And for Middleton, I just want to go back to it. Like, I still don't understand it. Like, Jay, you brought up the February stats, but Middleton, he's been consistently great the entire year, off having a bad coach. He's having a bad coach this year in Budenholzer, obviously, and it's not the best situation for him. So Middleton's still able to put up 21, 6, and 6. Great split.
Isn't he leading the Bucks in assists too?
Yeah, he's leading the Bucks in assists. And, like, Ben, these past 3 weeks, he's definitely made a case for it. Like, before this, I don't think there would have been a case. But we still have to account for what happened before this. Like, he's definitely in consideration. I just don't think what happened before, I don't think you could put him in over a guy like Middleton, who's consistently been great all year.
I just think what
agree,
that comes
and-
down to is Middleton isn't as big of a household name as Ben Simmons. That's kind of what Scobie was going at, I think, where as long as Ben's doing 70 or 80% of what we're used to, he's going to be in there. But yeah, Zach, you can get to your point. Sorry for cutting you off.
That's true. I agree with what you said. But like Justin said, Middleton has been consistent for the entire season. And Middleton is light years ahead of Ben Simmons as a scorer, in my opinion, at least. And like Ben Simmons might be better in like playmaking and defensive categories, but Middleton is good in both of those areas too. And I feel like the consistency over the entire season is what would push him over the edge for me. And honestly, when I saw Ben Simmons on this list, I knew it was coming, but I don't think he deserves this spot over guys like Middleton. And I would put Sabonis in there over him too, personally.
I would
Definitely.
even put – you could go Scobie.
And yeah, definitely. And I mean, one thing I was going to say is, of course, when we're talking about the reserves, one of the things you have to consistently factor in to this conversation is, of course, the coach's vote. And at the end of the day, the coaches, they do favor winning, and they do favor the guys they have to game plan for. And I think that's definitely something that also gives Ben Simmons an edge, because he is, a multifaceted player who is going to give you trouble on both ends of the floor. And as a coach, he's definitely a guy you look at and put a lot of thought into before every game and every matchup with him.
Do we think that Trey's, move, whatever you want to call it, where he goes back into a defender, do we think that cost him the coach's vote?
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely.
Steve Nash already called him out for it, so I think a lot of coaches are pissed.
I understand it from Trey's perspective. Like he's like what, 5 foot nothing. Like he's a little dude out there on the court. He's got to take advantage of whatever.
And if they're gonna call it, why not keep doing it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And that's why I don't blame the player per se. Like people harped on Harden for however many years for how he drew fouls. But I mean, Trey is the same situation. Like,
3 to 5 years now, every player will be doing that. You know what I mean?
Trey is at a bigger disadvantage because of his size.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't blame him at all. I mean, it is like a trash way to play basketball. I won't lie, because I came up with like, fundamentals and like playing the game the right way, but it's a different era in the NBA.
But with that being said, let's not act like, Trey Young is some scrub without doing that move. You know what I'm not, you're not saying that at all, but like, I'm just saying Trey Young's just adapting to the NBA and how it is. And if refs are going to make these calls, obviously he's going to innovate and, create this new wave of drawing fouls. But
it is 100% the reason why he didn't get the coach's vote.
I think so too.
I
think that's why he missed out.
One thing I want to add, Scobie was talking about why Ben got the vote in. And obviously, like, I was expecting Ben to get voted in, because I know what coaches look for. They look for winning and they look for everything on the court. But for me, this is just me personally. I like my criteria for all-stars and overall awards in particular. It's so completely different from what everyone else's is. For me, I look at more so, instead of just winning, like instead of saying, oh, the Sixers, they're the best record in the East, they need 2 all-stars no matter what, I look at impact more so than that. So when I look at a guy like Trey Young, he's averaging crazy stats on crazy efficiency this year, despite having, a slump. And I won't ignore it. Trey has had a slump in the middle of the year. And he's also 7th in the league in offensive box plus minus, which is basically per 100 possessions, how many shots you create for your teammates. And the guys above him, I mean, those are just some of the better offensive players: Jokic, Lillard, Curry, Embiid, Luka, and Harden. So, I mean, like, you can't really fault him for being below those guys.
All those guys are all-stars.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
MVP
and he's above guys that are all-stars.
Yeah.
LeBron's name didn't come up, I don't think.
No, LeBron's didn't.
Yeah. So.
And, like, for Trey, like, yes, they're not even a playing team right now, but, like, you have to consider the roster, all the injuries they've had. everything like that. He's still leading them to 0.5 out of that in contention. And Vucevic, as I mentioned before, it's basically the same thing. Numbers speak for itself, everything like that. But we've talked a lot about these guys, but one guy I want to get into is Julius Randle. So last year, Knicks fans and fans across the globe just hated him. He was a ball hog. He was a ball stopper. He was inefficient. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't do anything. This year, he's averaging 22, 11, and 6 on better efficiency. And when you watch him play, he's just so much better. He's so much, more involved in the offense in a better way. And, the way he's just changed around his game is something I've never seen before. I think Randall is easily leading for most improved player because, he literally went from one of the biggest liabilities in the league in terms of, ball stopping to this. And he's also an above-average defender now. So what do you guys think Randall should have made it?
Yeah, I think so.
Randall was probably, outside of Zach LaVine as a Bulls fan, Randall was probably the guy I was pulling for most to make this roster. One, because I was super high on the Knicks coming into the season. I don't know if a lot of people were, but listen to the Hoop Supply podcast preseason reactions or preseason predictions, and I was really high on this team. But Randall, I think the biggest thing for me is how Tom Thibodeau has used him as a playmaking hub, kind of around the high post, and that contributes a lot to his 6 assists per game. But Randall, he's contributing to a team that is a top 3 defense. Like you touched on his defense a little bit. He hasn't been known as a good defender, but he's contributing to one of the best defenses in the entire league. And he's also contributing to a team that has shocked the entire world. I don't think a lot of people before this season would have said that the Knicks would be a top 6 seed in the East right now. I don't think anybody would have predicted that, and they are. And his numbers, so when I was making my list for All-Star reserves, it really came down. The last spot was Randall and Sabonis at the last forward spot. And I went with Sabonis because of team record, but the numbers between the two are comparable.
They're so close.
They're basically the
so
exact
close.
same.
Yeah.
And their records are basically the exact same too. So I'm not mad that they gave Randall the spot, obviously, because I was rooting for him a lot. But
before we head over to the Western Conference and start taking a look at those reserve picks, the one guy I want to give an honorable mention to is Gordon Hayward. Obviously coming to Charlotte, that was an unexpected move, to most, and a questionable, and a move that was questioned, not a move I questioned, but a move that was seen as questionable because of the size of that contract. All he's done all year is prove the doubters wrong. This is a guy, who I consider one of the most versatile wings in the league. He can score on every level. He's a guy who can just change the game for you offensively, because he's a player who forces the defense to play to his pace, and he's really helped, along with LaMelo Ball, of course, to accelerate the pace of that Hornets offense because they have the personnel to do that. And it's done wonders for them. This is a team that is in the play-in right now and, is back and forthing with, a playoff spot. And I think you can attribute a lot of that to the success of Gordon Hayward. He's having a 22-point per game season. He's playmaking. He rebounds the ball well. He can defend. Just credit to that Hornets management for bringing in the best rookie in the draft class, and the best realistic free agent in Gordon Hayward, who was deserving of an all-star spot. It's just a stacked, talented Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm. For Gordon Hayward, when he got that contract, everyone was saying he was overpaid. And in actuality, he really never was. I questioned the contract myself, but not because of his ability. We saw in that last year with Boston, he still is the Utah Hayward, and he's proving that this year. But the only question was the health. And didn't he just go down? He got a hand injury. Yeah,
it's a day-to-day thing. It's not as bad as it looked initially, thank God.
All right, good. But that was the only problem I had with it, because I knew if he could stay fully healthy, he could easily be what he was for Utah, if not better. And he has been better this year, in my opinion. He's having a career year, and if you don't think it's a career year, it's very comparable. It's pretty much equal.
By definition, this is easily the best season of his career. And someone else to know, he's playing with a hand injury, and he's been playing with it all year. He suffered it in a preseason game. So, that only adds to how impressive this season is for him.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about the East. We pretty much covered everything. So now let's get to the West. What are you guys' initial reactions to the Western Conference?
I think that Devin Booker was snubbed. That's all that I have to say.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. He's just been. It seems like he's been their best player. I don't like. I love Chris Paul. I do. I really do. And I feel like they both deserved an All-Star spot. But if I had to pick between the two, I would have went with Devin Booker. He's been the one that's keeping them in games. He's been the one that's putting them over the edge in the fourth quarter. And that this is not me knocking Chris Paul at all. I'm happy he made it. But I just think Devin Booker has been Phoenix's best player this year. So how can he not be there over his teammate?
I think you go ahead, Zach.
I was gonna say I feel like Chris Paul and Devin Booker go hand in hand. Like you can't really point to one or the other as who's leading the charge, but because this team wasn't what they are now before Chris Paul got there, I feel like that's why he got the nod over Devin Booker currently.
And he's got more status in the league too. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's his name, Chris Paul, the point guard. We all know who he is at this point.
Yeah,
but luckily Devin Booker probably will make it as an injury replacement.
He was the guy vouching for this. He was the guy vouching for this All-Star game to even happen in the first place.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with AD not playing in the All-Star game. It would be a crime if it was not Devin Booker.
We'll get into that a little later. I want to talk about.
Go ahead and say it, Justin.
Yeah, say it.
No,
now.
I have a hot take. No, I want to talk about my guy Chris Paul.
Okay.
So, I mean, they have been very comparable this year, statistically speaking. But I'm gonna go Chris Paul for this. I understand the Devin Booker argument. He's been on a tear lately, the past 12, 13 games. But for Devin Booker, I'm not gonna say he struggled to start the season, but he did struggle to, get integrated into this offense because he's never been on a good team. He's never been in a real system until really the bubble. So he struggled with
until
that.
Monty Williams got there.
Huh?
Yeah. It was until Monty got there.
Yeah, until Monty got there, until he got a good and competent coach. He struggled to get within the offense. And now that he's in it, he's going off. But for Chris Paul, I mean, as Zach said, he came in, he's able to completely change around this team. They are the 4 seed. They're on a tear right now. I think they're 13-2 in their last 15, which is insane. His defense has taken a hit, I will admit. He's still a neutral defender. He's average, but he's not the elite defender he was in years past. But he's still a great playmaker, bringing it all offensively, helping the team so much, getting guys in their spots, doing everything they need for them. And he's the guy that's, getting them to where they are. So I think Chris Paul should have made it. Devin Booker, he was very close for me. There was 4 or 5 guys for the injury replacement for AD that I think can be the injury replacement, and Devin Booker's right in there because of this last stretch of games. But I want to talk about Rudy Gobert really quick. So most of the All-Stars are pretty straightforward, but Rudy Gobert, I mean, he's the runaway defensive player of the year in my opinion. The only guy that was even remotely close is Anthony Davis, and now he's hurt. And I don't even think when he was healthy, it was too big of it was too close of a gap. I mean, Gobert, he's leading this team to the best defense in the league, the best record in the league, which is the defense is why they're there. So I think he was easily a lock. But I just want to pose a question here: who deserves it more, Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell.
It's kind of the same case for me as Chris Paul and Devin Booker, where you can't really point to one of these guys. I know it's like a fun question that's being, asked around social media is who's the Jazz's best player, and there's a lot of good cases for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but personally I think it's Donovan Mitchell just because of what we saw him do last year in the bubble. But I think you got to have both these guys on here. They are the 1 seed. This isn't the case with the Sixers, where there's a ton of guys you could pick over Ben Simmons in the East. I think Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are both super deserving of this recognition.
Yeah, they're absolutely, deserving of both making this All-Star game. And of course, the other guy who was making a bid for this was of course Mike Conley, who will be
guy, isn't it?
As I'm sure Justin, will say. Him and Devin Booker are the 2 guys I'd expect to be, the favorites to land Anthony Davis's injury reserve spot. If I was to pick one out of those 2 guys, I'm going with Booker all day. I think, although him and Chris Paul go hand in hand, at the end of the day, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, has the biggest impact on that team. Devin Booker wins those games. Devin Booker is the guy you look to at the end of the game. This is a team that has been in a lot of close games, and in clutch situations, you're putting the ball in Devin Booker's hands a lot of the time if you're the Phoenix Suns. I think this year is comparable to that of the season he had last year, in which he made the game even as a reserve. I think you can make a case for now that he's hit his stride, because there were some early struggles. But this is a better season, especially seeing as they're winning basketball games. So if I was picking, that's Devin Booker's spot. That's his to take.
I just saw this now. I don't think there's any debate anymore that it's going to be Devin Booker, because King James himself just tweeted out that there is no player disrespected more than Devin Booker in the NBA. So he will be that reserve now. There's no debating that. If LeBron tweeted that, it's done.
Before we get into the reserves, I just want to talk about one more player, Zion Williamson. So there's a lot of mixed thoughts on this. Some people think he should make it. Some people think he shouldn't. What do you guys think?
I think it's Zion Williamson, first of all. Like, he's since Duke, he's been, their next LeBron is what they call him. He's the next golden boy of the NBA. And he's having a really, really good season too. It's flying under the radar because, we're looking at guys like LaMelo Ball, like they're the next big thing. But Zion Williamson is having a great year, like a really, really good year. I mean,
his efficiency is off the
it's
chart.
like never been seen before. Like, he's just been a beast. He's been their best player. I mean, shit, like Ingram is playing really well as well, but Zion's been their best player this season. I think we can agree on that. And he's the only reason really that they're closing out the games that they actually are. Like, anytime he gets it in the paint, it's in. There's no one that can finish better right now in the paint than Zion. And this is coming from a LeBron fan. So
Zion going towards the rim is the most efficient play in basketball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of Ingram definitely has a bid for that injury reserve spot too. He's been incredible this year. This is a guy who was in that game last year. He's definitely got a case too.
Something I want to bring up with you could go, Zach.
I was going to say one guy that I haven't heard brought up yet. We brought up Mike Conley and Brandon Ingram and Devin Booker, but we haven't brought up DeMar DeRozan yet. I feel like DeMar DeRozan, when I saw this list, it was a guy that immediately came to my mind. He's putting up 25 and 7 this year. The Spurs are in the 6th seed. Nobody expected them to be there, but the team just won't go away, and DeMar DeRozan is a big reason for that.
Yeah, did you guys see DeJounte Murray's tweet too? He said the only argument last year for DeMar was that the Spurs weren't winning games. This year, the Spurs are winning games. They're a top seed in the what are they, the 5th seed? Something like yeah. Six. They're right in the middle. And so now that they're winning games, DeJounte said, there's really no reason for DeMar to not be on this list. So I get where he's coming from with that. I think next to Booker, I would go DeMar for the other guy that I think could take that spot.
Wait, right before we get into it, I just want to give my thoughts on Zion real quick. Zion, he undoubtedly deserves a spot. He was my pick for the injury replacement before the reserves came out. I thought he should have missed it and then gotten the injury replacement. But it was really neck and neck with a few guys to get in the wild card spot or even the front court spot. Like, he started off amazing, but not like what he is now. I mean, Zion has some of the most crazy gravity in the entire NBA. Like, it's not like Steph Curry where like he draws gravity because he's an amazing shooter, but like he's just so dominant down low in the paint. He draws so many defenders to him, and it's crazy. When you watch the game, he just draws so many guys to him, but he's still shooting 62% from the field. And I think he's undoubtedly been their best player, and I think right now he is their best player as a whole. But now we've already touched on this topic a little bit, the injury replacement. Anthony Davis won't be playing because of an Achilles injury. So who do you guys think should be the injury replacement for him?
I've already got my word in there, Booker, for sure.
Devin Booker.
I think it's Devin Booker as well.
I think we're all in, aside from maybe Justin. I see a little smirk there. I think us three we're all in unanimous.
There's not even a debate for Conley in my opinion. That's no disrespect.
I'm going to debate.
Not even a debate.
I want to hear this.
I'll hear it though. I'm here for it.
So Devin Booker. I mean, if this was like 2-3 weeks ago, it would be easily Conley for me. But right now, like Devin Booker, he's making it a conversation. Like, he's been on a crazy tear. But I have to go Mike Conley by like 1% because Mike Conley with this Jazz team, it's not like, as Zach said earlier, it's not like one guy's doing everything. They all have roles. Gobert's the interior presence on defense. Mitchell, he's the scoring engine. And Conley, his stats may not jump out to you. He's averaging 16, 4, and 6, but his impact on this team is just it's so high. I mean, he's easily the primary playmaker for them. And even though he's only averaging 6 assists, I mean, when you watch them play, he generates so many open looks. Like the Jazz, they're shooting 45% from 3 right now. And a large part of that is due to Mike Conley because of the looks he generates with, his high IQ passing and playmaking. And his defense, I mean, this could be elevated by Rudy Gobert. I've heard that argument a lot. But this is the best defensive season he's had in his career. And a rebuttal to that argument that Gobert elevates his defense, I mean, I know he was battling with injuries last year, but last year he was just a flat-out bad defender. This year he's been a great defender. I wouldn't say elite, but he's been great. So Conley, the playmaking role and his defense this year, I think it's enough. And with the Jazz, I mean, Mitchell, again, he's the scoring engine. Gobert, he's the defensive anchor. But Conley, he brings the playmaking, which generates all those open looks. And, it's just not one guy running the show. It's all of them. So I think the Jazz should have 3 all-stars for that reason.
Ultimately, although Conley has a bid, I just think, as it comes it comes down to the line with the all-star voting, there's always going to be a bit of recency bias. It's always going to be who's the hottest player right now. And right now, Devin Booker is outplaying him. Mike Conley did miss some games here and there. I just think at this point, Book is almost running away with that spot just because of his recent play.
Yeah.
You guys think he's going to get it, or is it just like you guys think he should?
I think
both.
Him and DeMar both have an equal chance to take that spot personally.
Well, especially after, like Jay said, LeBron tweeted it out. I think it's signed, sealed, and delivered at this point.
Yeah.
Devin Booker's going to get that spot.
Yeah, I don't think Conley has a chance to make it because no one's talking about him. But I think it's easily Devin Booker that he will make it, even though I think Conley should.
I'll be happy if Conley gets it because we know he's one of the best players ever to never make the All-Star team, maybe the best player ever.
Well, I actually just read that there's only 10 players, actually 9 above Mike Conley in NBA history with more win shares that didn't make the All-Star team.
Which is just wild. Like he's had multiple All-Star caliber seasons, but he just has never made it. So
one thing that sucks, we're talking about guys who have never made it. CJ McCollum, he would have been a lock.
He would have been a lock, bro.
That's exactly where I was going. Before we wrap this thing up, CJ McCollum, if he goes down without an All-Star appearance, it's going to be one of the.
It's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. I mean, this year he was, he was on pace for a potential starting spot. I mean, he was above and beyond the Blazers' best player for the 12 or so games he played to start this year. I mean, this was a guy averaging 27 points a game, shooting over 40% from behind the arc on over 8 attempts a game. I mean, throughout his career, this is someone who's been one of the elite isolation scorers in the history of the game. I will go as far as to say that CJ McCollum is one of the best isolation scorers at his position ever. And to think there is, a good chance he is going to go down without an All-Star appearance is, it's incredibly depressing. I mean, I think this was his best chance to make it. I mean, there's time left. This year, just shows that because, he was also making a bit of a most improved bid too, for sure this year. Just taking his game out, beyond the 3-point line and really making that the focus because, this was a guy who did take a lot of long twos and he turned those into threes this year. His facilitation this season is much improved. I just got to hope and pray that, CJ McCollum can one day finally earn that All-Star nod.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is a good place to wrap it up. There were some guys we didn't talk about like Paul George, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. But I mean, come on. I mean, we all know like they deserve it. There's nothing to really touch up on that. But you guys can find us on Instagram at SwishWire and on Twitter at SwishWire, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. We pretty much have our podcast on every platform you could think of. So go check us out. This has been the SwishWire podcast. You guys have any last words to say?
Just thank you for listening.
Russ was snubbed. Have a good night.
Thank you to Zach Levine and the team. I'm very appreciative of that.
Russ pod coming up soon. Anyways, this has been the SwishWire podcast. Thank you for listening, and peace.